right, y'all, let's get into day 8 of the Diddy trial. So, day 8 pretty much opens up with a special agent who's part of busting in his house in Miami. If you want to get a recap of what he talked about, go look at my day 7 video. I'm pretty much covering the trial day by day. So let's get into his testimony. All right, so the special agent pretty much testified that not only did he find weapons in the home, he also found drugs. They found Xanax, bills with snow in them, a liquid residue of is Diddy doing meth? Liquid MDMA, cell phones, bullets. He said he even found eye drop medicine, but it wasn't eye drop medicine in the bottle. It was drugs in the bottle. Diddy, what you doing, boy? So either Diddy was using the eye drop bottle to hide his drugs when he was traveling so he can use it for personal use, or was he putting the drugs in the people's drinks, child? This is what's going on. The drugs wasn't in the baby oil. They was in the eye drop canister. So Diddy's lawyer, TENY GERAGOS, steps up to the special agent and was like, is it normal for people in Florida to have weapons in their home? Do you have a gun in your house? He was like, yeah. She said, is it common practice for you guys to run into somebody's home with 80 to 90 agents? Said, now all the time. She said, did y'all come to his house in armored vehicles and boats? He said, yes. She said, did you find any photos of Diddy holding guns? He said, no. She said, did you fingerprint or run any DNA on any of the weapons in the home? He was like, hey, that ain't my job, okay? I'm not the DNA person. She was like, no further questions. So they're pretty much saying, look, they ain't fingerprint these guns. They ain't run DNA on them. We don't know who those guns belong to. They came in with excessive force. Why did you need 80 to 90 people just to go look through his stuff and find some personal drug use as well as some freaky deaky items? That's the picture that Diddy's team is trying to paint. Like, y'all came in too hard and heavy to come up with a little bit. The feds then called Dr. Dawn Hughes. So Dr. Dawn was called in to testify on patterns of domestic violence victims. She says she charges anywhere from $600 an hour to $6,000 per day for court sessions. She testified that violence shows up in many different ways: intimidation, throwing things. She said when people suffer from sexual violence due to shame and being degraded, sometimes it's hard for them to leave the relationship. She says emotional abuse shows up in ways of like people putting their partners down, making them feel small. Financial abuse can be controlling housing and transportation and taking items away. We have heard of Diddy trying to take her car away, take her phones away, dangle her career over her head. Cassie, who we're speaking about. She also spoke about how love bombing works. When people meet, sometimes the abuser can overwhelm their partner with love and affirmations and gifts, and it becomes a pattern. When there's abuse, the person tries to leave, they get love bombed, and then a trauma bond forms. Because essentially, you don't want to lose your partner. She also stated that sometimes victims will do things they don't want to do to either avoid abuse or to please their partners. She spoke also about how when there's a power dynamic in the relationship, that can also make it harder for victims to speak out. Power dynamics can be Diddy and Cassie's situation. He's the CEO, he's the boss. A power dynamic could be a preacher messing with like in the church community. We've heard about coaches like bothering like some of the kids. Like those are different types of power dynamics that can come into play. And it also makes people scared to speak out because the other person is more powerful than them. Then Diddy's lawyer steps up. Mr. Bach, he's new to the team. He was like, Dr. Dawn, is it true that everybody is different, right? People don't just fit into boxes? She said, yes. He said, when you work with clients, you usually need a lot of information, right? Like police reports, witness reports, things like that. She said, yes. He says, sometimes people can fabricate their emotional responses, right? She said, yes. He said, have you gathered any information about this case? She said, I'm not here to testify about a particular person. I'm just here to testify in a general sense. He said, didn't you just testify in another court right up the street? Didn't you tell them all this same information that you just told us today? She said, yes. I just speak in a general sense about abuse when I'm called into court. He said, you earn most of your money by speaking in these court cases, huh? You've been retained plenty of times, but you never came in and testified in defense of a man accused of a sex crime. She said, that's correct. I don't usually evaluate offenders. He said, most of your work is done with women, huh? She said, yes. So Diddy's lawyer is pretty much trying to paint the picture that this doctor, this psychiatrist, she's just here for money. She says the same thing no matter what court she goes to. She doesn't know the details of this case. She hasn't talked to Cassie or any other victims in this case, so we really can't believe nothing that she's saying. She just here to get a paycheck. What I'm learning about Diddy's defense is their goal is to say everybody who's here is just here for money. That's what I'm learning. Their defense is everybody just wants Diddy's money. And you know what? Some people do just want Diddy's money, but he is also guilty of some things too, okay? We can be fair with that. So they let her go on about her business, told her she can go ahead and leave. I am curious. I wonder why the feds called her so soon. I imagine that they would have saved the doctor for last to kind of wrap the whole story up and to kind of finalize everything. But it looks like they kind of got her in and out pretty quickly. Next, they called one of Diddy's other assistants. His name is George Kaplan. Now, the first thing George came in and said was, listen, I plead the fifth. I ain't got nothing to say. I don't know nothing. Man, let me tell you how sneaky, dirty, and slimy the feds are. The feds walked up to the judge and said, hey, I got an immunity agreement here. Can you sign off on this, judge? The judge signed off. The feds say, okay, you got immunity. You need to go ahead and testify. Now, what's key about having immunity is, well, I'll let attorney Redwine explain.
Here's the thing about an immunity agreement. He never asked for it. He didn't want it because he didn't want to testify. But once you are given an immunity agreement, you have to testify, whether you want to or not. So he has to testify. And the agreement says if he's found to lie, then the agreement is no good and they can charge him. So in effect, those who were saying, how is this a one-man RICO? It's not. There's one man being charged as of now. Others could be charged in the future. They don't have to charge everyone together. And in fact, it's better to charge others only after the fact, after you get the head honcho, and that's what they're doing here.
All right, so they make him testify. So George is speaking with the feds, and he said, listen, I worked for Diddy for about 2 years. I was based out of New York, and I specifically reported to KK. KK has been called so many times in this trial. If y'all don't know, KK is Diddy's right-hand woman, okay? She has been there with him for a very long time. So George is like, I reported to KK. He said, I worked anywhere from 80 to 100 a week and got paid around $125,000 a year. He said they did work long hours because at the time Diddy was working on a mixtape. So now we have another person with a forced labor accusation. He said he worked around Diddy and took care of everything, like making sure he had his iPad, his drugs. He also said he was around a lot of the security people, D-Rob, Uncle Paulie, Ruben. Listen, y'all. There's a reason the feds keep making everybody say D-Rock, Uncle Paulie, and Roger Bonds. This is the muscle of the enterprise. Every single witness, or almost every single witness that they're calling, are saying the names D-Rock, Bonds, and Uncle Paulie. They are establishing the enterprise. All right, so he said he set up everything for Diddy. When he would go and get the rooms together, he would provide clothes, candles, baby oil, and he paid for most of these items himself. He said Diddy didn't want things like the baby oils and the candles and all the illegal things ran through the business. He had to pay for it out of pocket, and then he would get reimbursed. I think we've heard this before, right? Right? He said sometimes Diddy would threaten his job if he wasn't like performing up to par. I don't have a problem with that. You know, if I'm the boss, I might threaten and say you might not get your job if you ain't doing right. He said he booked hotel rooms in LA, New York, and Miami, and he would book the rooms under the name Frank Black, Frank White. For all y'all don't know that these Franks, when the name Frank come up, that's Diddy's secret name, okay? He said he would always clean up the rooms after Diddy and not let the hotel staff do it because it would protect Diddy's image. Now, I don't really see nothing wrong with that either. If Diddy wasn't doing illegal stuff, it's nothing wrong with having your team clean the room up. He said he would get Diddy all kind of drugs in LA and Miami. Diddy had him call a person and he paid the guy and he got the drugs. I kind of see why this man got immunity because he essentially was buying drugs for Diddy. And even though it was for Diddy's personal use, it's still illegal, y'all. And not to mention, it sounds like they're transporting these drugs from state to state. And then the day pretty much ended. I'm pretty sure they'll pick back up with him on day 9 because I don't think they finished questioning him. Kid Cudi is also supposed to testify too. But what do y'all think about the Diddy case so far? Who do y'all think is winning? Defense? Prosecution? Y'all think Diddy gonna beat this? Or do y'all think he's going down? Leave your comments below. Thanks for hanging out with me. Peace.